Good day and welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com, produced by Sharc Creative, that is Shark with a C, not a K. You see the big Sharc Creative logo on the wall behind me in orange and blue. I'm John Marino, decked out kind of like the way I'm normally decked out. We're on westchestertalkradio.com, and we are made possible by our good friends at places like Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark, get Lipolis. Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. That's what they do at Hightower. This is what we do on the Cup of Joe political show. We talk with newsmakers and elected officials and representatives around our area here in Westchester. And today we're joined by Greg Luisi. Greg Luisi is the mayor of the village of Tuckahoe, first elected as a trustee back in 2011, elected mayor in his first term in 2019, taking over from Steve Eklund, a good friend who I would talk with from time to time in a different media venue. Greg Luisi, it's been about a year or so since you've been on the job. What has it been like, or is that, on my part, maybe an oxymoron of a question with this uniquely challenging 2020? I hate to say you didn't sign up for this. A public official signs up for whatever, but you could not have expected anything like this.
Nothing in my wildest dreams could have either prepared me for what has occurred in the last 7-8 months here in the village, actually in the world. But fortunately, we have a great support staff here in the village. So just like everybody else, we hung in together and we're doing the best we can. And, initially, we're very fortunate in the state of New York that we got direction from Albany the way we did. And that also trickled down to our county government as well. I've said it so many times that County Executive George Latimer has done a phenomenal job, him and his team, of keeping all elected officials, all municipalities in the loop, and being there at a moment's notice to provide any assistance or aid that they possibly can. So it's been a collaborative effort. Couldn't have done this by myself. But in the beginning, John, I have to be very honest with you. Every morning I woke up and I was holding my head in my hands going, what's going to happen today? Or what do we have to do as a village to help everyone get through this and to keep everyone safe?
Now, one thing I noticed throughout our area here, you're a Republican. George Latimer, Andrew Cuomo, they are Democrats. And everyone I speak to talks about how the two parties have cooperated on every level throughout this pandemic. And it's been basically what should be a national model. And unfortunately, nationally, it's not.
It's not. You're right. You're absolutely right, John. And we probably would not have been as successful in New York in containing the virus, or specifically in our Mid-Hudson region, if we didn't have that cooperation. The R's and the D's, that got thrown out the window when March 19th rolled around. And George was quite emphatic about impressing all of us on the conference calls that we have, that it's not about politics. It's about helping everyone get through this pandemic.
What's the difference, the major difference between being a village trustee and then one day you're getting inaugurated as mayor, and the scope is much wider, obviously?
You're the guy that gets all the questions. You're the one that gets all the emails. You're the guy at the front of the boat, if you will. So, I represent the village board, and it was a dramatic change for me in the sense where I had been a trustee for 8 years, and Steve did all that heavy lifting, if you will. But being the mayor, it only took me a few days, and I realized, okay, now I see what we have to do here. But fortunately, again, as I said earlier, we're very fortunate to have a village administrator like David Burke, who I work hand in hand with every day. He keeps me informed, and obviously I keep him informed of what we want to do, how we want to see it done, and so on and so forth. So again, collaborative effort keeps us going.
When you became the mayor, did relationships change with other members on the village board with other trustees? You know, you're the boss. You're the kingpin now.
No, not really. Not really. I think we had more of a sense of let's all work together, as a board, and I welcome that. I'm not the smartest pencil in the box. Believe me, I'll be the first person to tell you that.
Neither am I. So,
And I even said it, to the staff when I first took office. I says, look, if you see me going down the wrong path, or maybe I should look at something a different way, by all means, please, offer your advice. And if I disagree, that's one thing, but it'll never be held against you.
So here we are now towards the end of 2020 in the final quarter of the year. What has 2020 been like for you? How hard has COVID hit the village of Tuckahoe?
Oh, I got to tell you, John, one of the main sources of revenue here in the village is our commuter parking lots, of which we have 2 train stations here in the village of Tuckahoe. So that is we are extremely dependent on that revenue source, which I don't have to tell you is completely dried up. So much so that we're anticipating when people would renew their parking permits for the beginning of the year in January, we're obviously anticipating that those people are not going to be coming back. As it is, we've had so many people turn in their parking permits, even with, the penalty of turning the permit in early. So right then and there, this is going to be a major, major problem for us heading into this year.
How do you make up for that missing revenue at that point? What do you do?
Well, that's a great question. It's something that we're beginning to explore some of the possibilities, but we don't know what those possibilities could possibly be. We're fortunate that the hotel is finally up and running. So the village will realize a 3% occupancy tax on the rooms as they're rented. But of course, again, it's not going to be at the magnitude that we would have expected pre-COVID. The other thing is the construction. We have a new learning center that hopes to be open by November of next year. That is one of our major development. Well, it's not really a major development in the sense where they're taking over where Epstein's used to be, but they're going to spend quite a lot of money renovating the interior, obviously to be compliant with state regulations. So, we're still collecting money. Sales tax is still coming in. Where surprisingly, because everybody's, eats out as much as they possibly can here in the village. And what was the other thing I wanted to mention?
We are going to get to basketball. I know that too.
I know. I'm sure we will. But, there are some businesses that have suffered here in the village. There are 2 villages that literally got their certificate of occupancy on the day that we shut the village down.
Wow.
One of them being a personal trainer, and the other was a small restaurant, a 7 to 8 table restaurant, Italian restaurant that was going to open up on Main Street. So at the beginning, with all non-essential businesses being closed down, obviously, that all fell by the wayside. So how we're going to make up that revenue is yet to be discussed, and we need to explore how, if we can. We don't know if we are going to be able to make up that loss of revenue. And to be honest with you, I don't see us doing that, not to the extent with the amount of money that we're losing today.
So this recovery will take time then.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, you look at the Andrus Learning Center that occupies 2 floors here in Village Hall. When you see, the amount of children that are coming back to the daycare, it's very disheartening compared to what I'm used to seeing, because they have a playground area in the back of Village Hall, and you just see a multitude of kids every time you come to Village Hall during the week. Now it's down to a trickle. So just like every other business in the country, they have hurdles to overcome as well.
Maintaining public health, obviously, a major component of all this, too. And basketball has somehow become a hot topic in town, not because of the level of play of basketball or anything like that, but because of its connection to this health issue and preserving public health.
Yes. I'm glad you brought this up, John, because for some reason, it's, as you said, it's really become a hot topic. Despite what I reply to people, they still come back. They want to know why our basketball courts are not open. But let me start off by saying we're one of the few municipalities in this area that have 2 full-size basketball courts. That's number one. Our playing surface has recently, within the past year, was resurfaced. We also have a nice bleacher section. We also have lights. So pre-COVID, it was a great gathering for kids from all over, not only Tuckahoe, to play basketball all day into the evening. Again, the governor said that is a high-risk sport. And the basketball courts that we have definitely lend themselves to competitive 5-on-5 games. You're going to have people waiting to play the loser or winner of the next game sitting in those bleachers. It's a situation that we can neither monitor or supervise, if you will. Because the governor said it's a high-risk sport, not permissible, those basketball hoops have been down since mid-March. Now, what happened in the meantime, John? The surrounding municipalities put up their basketball hoops, specifically Parkway Oval, which many people think is part of Tuckahoe, but actually it's under the jurisdiction of the town of Eastchester. So they had put their basketball hoops up. Obviously, there was a gathering of basketball players down there, which led to residents in that area voicing their concerns about this gathering of people that were not practicing social distancing, not wearing face masks, litter, so on and so forth. So within the last week, the town of Eastchester has removed all the basketball hoops, not only in Parkway Oval, but in all of their town parks. This is something that came from the governor. This is part of his guidelines that we are following here in the village. Just like I wouldn't turn around to the restaurant owner and say, listen, you can go 100% capacity inside. Don't worry about what the governor says. It's the same business model that we're following here. We're following those guidelines that have been handed down from Albany.
And it became such a big issue now. And I do want to point out that Tuckahoe High School has one of the very best basketball teams on a high school level in Class C and D. I know these things change every year based on attendance. One year you could be a C, one year you could be a D. Get a few more kids, you could be a Class B. And it's one of the best high school basketball programs in the state. So it's popular in Tuckahoe, no question about that. And it's something that became an issue that you would never guess would have been an issue, that the governor says you can't play ball. You can't play ball unless you're going to play in your own backyard. It's that simple. So, and it's good to see that everybody locally now around the area is in compliance seemingly with that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, John, we had an issue. I'm trying to think of what phase it was of the reopening, but we couldn't get, there was no guidance or direction coming from Albany as to what we should do about the playgrounds. Because we closed our parks in March, right when this COVID began.
Right.
We closed the parks. We initiated a curfew via executive order. So, we shut everything down back in March. Then it came to when they started issuing guidelines about recreation and sports. And what the bottom line was, if you're going to open up your parks, post signage that indicates to whoever's going to use the playground, at your own risk, please practice safe social distancing. If possible, clean your area before your child plays on it. But just think how unrealistic that is. Because if I remember correctly, when I was a young parent, I was going to meet my children's friends at the playground. So there's always going to be, that group gathering of children. So, but it's working out so far, so good. So
How
we
about
did.
capital development in town? I know the budget obviously heavily affected, what you want to do heavily affected. How much of a crimp has this put into future development in Tuckahoe now, looking at what you would like to do as opposed to what you can do now, seemingly at the moment?
Well, another great question. As I mentioned earlier, the Learning Center, which is going to be renovating the old Epstein's, I know they filed their plans. They're going full steam ahead to do what they have to do to be open for next year. We also have a restaurant that is being built as part of the Marriott Hotel that's located here in the village. But other than that, that's the only two developments that I know of that are on the table being worked on as we speak. There's some talk. There are, because of that hotel now being on Marbledale Road. The chatter that I hear through the grapevine is some of the business owners are looking to sell their property, and possibly there might be where the old Chow's restaurant used to be, or Chianti's restaurant. That property owner may be selling it to a developer who's looking to build a 3-story commercial building. Pause and Play, which is a doggy care, is looking to expand their operation as well. But other than that, those are the only solid developments that I know that could possibly be happening right here in the village right now.
That expression sounds like a plan. It's tough to make plans under these circumstances.
It is. And one of the things that, I campaigned on as mayor and even as trustee was to redevelop or to commission a new master plan, because our master plan that we're operating now is slightly over 10 years old. But with that being said, how do we go to municipal planners and ask them to predict what the future is going to be like? If there was no COVID, this would be really, it would have already been done. It would already been happening. It works. But do we know what is going to happen to Manhattan? So all those people that use our parking lots and supplied us with all that revenue, are they going back to work? When are they going back to work?
Most will work from home now, as we see.
All right. Or is this exodus from Manhattan? Is that going to continue? Should we advocate for high-rise buildings here in Tuckahoe at the risk of having our heads chopped off? Because, obviously we want to maintain the aesthetics of the village. We want to keep it that quaint village. Who knows the answer to those questions? So that's why I'm very reluctant right now to go ahead with the master plan until, we know what the landscape's going to look like a year from now, let's say.
We don't know what it's going to look like a week from now, honestly.
No, we don't. You're absolutely right.
No. Absolutely. And especially with the outbreak, the second wave here coming now in Brooklyn, in Queens, Rockland County, Orange County, a community upstate as well. Who knows what tomorrow holds, the way things are going. If you're a restaurant owner, and I'm around Kew Gardens and Forest Hills a lot for personal reasons. And one of the guys who I've never been in his place, an Indian place, but I saw him interviewed in the New York Post a couple of days ago. I know him from around the neighborhood, 24-year-old guy. And he said, what am I supposed to do now? Drink? I got a place in Williamsburg, too. We're going to shut down Williamsburg also, too. So I don't know what to do. He said, I'm going to go call my parents. What else can you do at that point then? You have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
Isn't that to me is that weighs on my mind every day, not only for, obviously the residents of Tuckahoe, but for everyone, for all of us.
It's all connected around this tri-state area.
It sure is. It sure is. And I think if the lesson has to be learned, the face mask, the social distancing is so critical to us continuing towards that new sense of normalcy.
I think where people are getting a bit lax with all this, with the distancing, wearing the face masks. And yet in Tuckahoe, things have gone a lot different, where you've got everybody in total compliance around the village, and that's the way I think it has to be.
It is, and I'm grateful to the residents for following these guidelines and being safe. And our business owners, our restaurant owners, have done a phenomenal job here. In particular, there's one restaurant that, since they're allowed to have indoor dining, what they did was they put heavy corrugated plastic in between the tables and decorated the plastic with decorations. So everybody, when you go into this restaurant, you feel safe because you don't see who's sitting at the table, 2 tables away from you because of the partition. The staff, very religious in keeping their mask on at all times. And they also, a few of our restaurants had the luxury, if you will, of being able to utilize their parking lots to have outdoor dining prior to being allowed to have their patrons sit inside. But what we had done in the meantime with the village board, rather than go through the zoning and planning boards, for site plan approval, and we allowed, as long as the business supplied us with a model as to what they wanted to do with their sidewalk seating, even utilizing the actual street, as long as it was safe and it passed the muster of our police chief, our building department, and in some cases the fire department, then we granted them the ability to do that. As a matter of fact, we just extended that out until November, if they so desire that they want to stay outside with their outdoor seating.
And one thing to point out, too, despite all of the financial hits all of these businesses and restaurants have taken, that they've gone to great expense just to open up again in order to maybe, hopefully, break even, hopefully make a few bucks. But everything you talked about costs money, and a lot of money, a lot of investment.
So true. Angelina's is one of the restaurants that when he set up his outdoor dining in his parking lot area, there was an area where the dumpsters would be kept. So what he did, to your point, is he had a wooden fence erected so you wouldn't see the dumpsters. They're away from the public eye. And again, it's an expense to him. He had to go out and get the tables. He had to go out and get the chairs. He had to get the umbrellas for his outdoor dining. Just like he had to, commission somebody, or maybe it was a buddy of his that painted all those partitions between the tables. And that applies to all the restaurants that are taking advantage of the outdoor dining.
You got to get people in to construct all of this, protection. And it has to, first of all, you have to buy the right equipment, and then it has to be installed the right way to make it work and to pass guidelines too.
Correct. We provided concrete jersey barriers to a lot of our local residents that, versus the plastic one. Just because we have them on hand. So it was nothing for us, again, to help them along with this stuff. And I have to say, most of these restaurants are doing very, very well, fortunately.
And you mentioned a number of great places, too, along the way. So it's good to see that things are going well there. And let's hope we keep this moving in the right direction. Joined by the Village of Tuckahoe Mayor Greg Luisi here on Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are made possible by our friends at places like Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April of 2021. White Plains Hospital, thanks to everybody there at White Plains Hospital for all they've done throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. Greg Luisi, as we now move we're in the month of October here. Schools have been open for a few weeks already. How has the reopening of schools in Tuckahoe gone at this point? Is learning more of a hybrid model in Tuckahoe too, like it is in most areas?
It's a combination, John. It depends on what the parents wanted to sign up for. I could talk. I have a little bit more info about what Eastchester, what their model, how they're operating. So I'll just quickly go through that because obviously they're part of, the village of Tuckahoe as well.
Right.
So what Eastchester did was Monday and Tuesday would be for a certain, depending, I guess, on the last name. Wednesday is a shutdown day where the school would disinfect the building. Thursday and Friday would be the rest of the alphabet that would be attending in class. What I liked about that is that they gave parents stability. They knew that every Monday and Tuesday that their kids were going to be in school. Now, in Tuckahoe, there's a little variation on that. So it's not actually set in stone that you're going to be in school every Monday and Tuesday. It may change. But as far as I know, it's pretty much working along the same way as the Eastchester model as well.
And is there a coordination between the Tuckahoe and Eastchester school system at all, or is everybody doing things as they see fit in their locale?
I believe that everybody's following the guidelines that are handed down.
Right.
I know that in Tuckahoe's case, grades, the grammar school kids are going 5 days a week. And then I think 1 through 3 or K through 3, then 4 through 12 is on that hybrid model, if you will, where they're home or they actually come into class. But it seems that it's and speaking with the parents or one of the parents of the child that goes there, it's the teachers that move around the building, which is very interesting.
That they do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting. So once again, to maintain the bubble, if you will, in case someone does come down with the virus.
I know of one school district on Long Island where the kids are enclosed in a bubble, basically, with fiberglass or plastic around each seat in the classroom. So I said, and I was talking to a teacher in one of these districts, so I guess your desk is enclosed too. And she said, no, not the teachers. I said, why not? She said, because we have to move around.
Mm-hmm.
You have to move around. So you'll have different people coming in to the area where you are. You'll be going into somebody else's space, and who knows if somebody was carrying what, and you're going to sit in a spot where somebody who might be a carrier just was, and that leads to other problems. So it was determined by the administration of that district that the kids all get enclosed, they'll all be in one spot all day, but teachers have to move around floor to floor. So interesting. I think these are creative times for all of this, and we're all learning as we go along.
Well, as I said to one of the superintendents, I said, after this is all said and done, there should be a whole narrative that's devoted to what education had to do during these times. I mean, it's just a monumental task.
Right.
And again, getting back to Tuckahoe, if you don't have your mask on, say they have mask time in the grammar school, so you may get an extra 45 minutes of mask time. So you have to stay 12 feet away within that circle. Of course, it's out on the grass or in the street. You can take your mask off. If you're not comfortable with that, you want to get closer, 6 feet, mask on. So they're trying everything under the sun to keep these kids entertained,
right,
and involved in their own safety. And of course, I'm so glad that I don't have kids that have to learn from home. So I can't even imagine the struggles that these parents have to endure with, with their kids learning from home.
Especially for parents who do have to go to work and they have to their kids, they have to find some kind of babysitting service, etc. Maybe get a relative to come in and do it, or find a way to make it work however it works for them.
Mm-hmm. And then throw into that the fact that they can't participate in sports or after school activities. I mean, I know
that's another challenge around the county and around Section 1, of which Tuckahoe High School is part of, in Westchester and throughout the lower Hudson Valley into Section 9, which is the mid-Hudson Valley. And you talk to athletic people in Section 1, in Section 9, and sports right now is a hybrid based on state guidance too, and this varies district by district, who feels comfortable playing the allowable sports right now, who does not. And everybody knows or hopes we're all going to play football in March at this point.
Right, exactly. And that's and what we were talking about before, I use that as a reference in answering some of the emails. about the basketball. I says, look, Section 1 is not having any sports activities right now.
Right.
And they're able to supervise those activities.
Right.
So if they're not playing football and or basketball, I again,
nobody else can. You
Right.
can't play soccer, boys and girls. You can't play field hockey, which is a fall sport. You got outdoor track and tennis also too. But I've spoken to a few officials who, and right now they're still in the rehearsal stage, still in preseason training camps, which would have
Right.
opened August 14th or 15th, like it generally does, middle of August. Then everything began September 29th, just a few days ago. And I've spoken to a few game officials who say, yeah, I have a schedule to work, but am I going to work? I'm still thinking about that. Let's let everybody get through the warm-up sessions here for a few weeks, through their preseason preparations, et cetera. And then once day one comes and I see there really is a game, let's say on October 31st, for example, and if that happens to be day one, whatever it is, I'll make a decision at that time. So if you don't have enough game officials, then everything that may have been done up to that point is out the window too.
Mm-hmm. And who's going to be sitting in the stands?
Right. That is still to be determined, may have to be determined district by district. I do lots of public address announcing at athletic events around Westchester through Section 1, Section 9, and on Long Island and all the way down the Jersey Shore, too. So these are issues that are dealt with. And in some of the districts, I'm involved in helping to work these issues out, because if we have festivities or activities, if we have a game and I get the okay that, okay, we are going to use a public address announcer for this, how do we socially distance? How do we distance the fans, for example? Who do we allow to come? Do we allow one parent per player? Do we allow two parents per player? One district said to me, okay, John, we got soccer. You come. The game officials who normally sit together at a table, they have to be there. We got to space them out. And then if we say, okay, two parents for every player, and let's say we got 20 kids on our team, an opponent has 20 kids, we got 80 people there, both parents come, which generally they don't, but let's use that as an example. You got the game officials, you got athletic people and administrators from the schools who stop by. We got over 100 people at that point. So how are we following the guidelines at that point? You tell me. Got any ideas?
Mm-hmm.
And you see this, and it's like, yeah, wait a second here. How do we do this at this point?
Right. Yeah. And again, what's going to happen? I know here that the football program has been pushed off to March or April, but that's when we play baseball too.
Right.
And,
set it up so that there are three different sports seasons after the beginning of the year, basically, how this is all going to shake down. You got the winter sports season. You have fall 2, which will be football and cheerleading and volleyball at that time. And then you have baseball and the spring sports. So that leads to a situation where you have a lot of three sport athletes, a lot of kids, boys and girls, who play three sports across all these seasons. So I brought this point up in a couple of discussions with athletic people and say, I thought these were student athletes. So if somebody's a three-sport player and they still want to take part in all three sport seasons, they could do four sports now. Play in the fall, play soccer, or run track, or be part of the field hockey program, and then still do fall 2, play volleyball or football, and then be part of the winter sports season and the spring sports season. Gee, I thought these were student athletes. Instead, they're just basically seemingly athletes because you don't play too. You got to practice a lot as well. So when do you go to school? So these are all issues that are still being worked out here. It affects Tuckahoe. It affects every school in Westchester and throughout our tri-state area. And I think this is another situation where it's day by day. You got to go by the state guidance, which trickles down to local section guidance and then individual school guidance. And then we're back to asking kids out in the street, put your mask on. And it's like, who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to some of the parents who are involved in sports with their children, specifically the parochial schools, the private schools, where those sports programs are premier.
Right.
Well, because they're not playing, what do you think the parents are doing? They're letting their kids attend school where they live and saving a bundle of money, because what's the point? they're not going to be showcased.
Right.
So they might as well save that money and go to school where they reside. And what that's doing, obviously, is affecting the programs of these private schools.
Right. Of a Stepanak, of an Iona Prep, for example.
Yes.
Yeah, places like that. Salesian, where a kid may not travel from Croton to come down to New Rochelle to go to Salesian, for example. Or a kid may not travel from Yonkers to go up to White Plains to go to Stepanak. Or kid stays home in White Plains, maybe goes to Roosevelt or Saunders instead. So it's just so many myriad issues and topics that are mixed in all together here. And it's amazing that someone like you, in the mix of all of this, in the middle of all of this every day, the kind of things you have to deal with, you have to think, obviously, of not only budgets, not only keeping people safe and healthy, but what do we do with our kids? How do we provide activities for our kids in our village, in our town on a day-to-day basis, because they don't have these activities at schools right now.
That's right. That's right. And it's not like you can say, go to the movies.
No,
you know, I mean, we can't do that. We can't tell them to go to our community center.
No. I read last night Regal theaters across the country might shut down now because nobody's coming to the theater. So why stay open? So we're not going to have even that small outlet anymore. So what do? How do we keep kids off the streets? And to think that, well, it's Tuckahoe, kids don't get in trouble. Kids need activities everywhere, no matter where you go, like the basketball courts being open till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. You get games on those courts in Tuckahoe with everybody coming into Tuckahoe from surrounding communities, keeping kids off the street, keeping them active. And that's a key. And all of this works into the mix as well. And this has all been part of the victimhood of the damage of COVID-19 throughout 2020, and seemingly more still to come. And we have to hope, I think, at least to get that vaccine as soon as possible, try to get our lives back to normal as much as possible, every aspect, every level.
Exactly. And you know, we're talking about the movie theaters. What about Broadway? I mean, who ever thought
in 2021, we hope.
Isn't that? I mean, think about that. I mean,
the Great White Way has gone dark forevermore at this point. Who knows when it might be back? And the people who run and own these theaters on Broadway are deep-pocketed people, and yet money runs out at some point. Money, if you stay shut down, you may have 30 successful businesses, but this business is not being successful. And business-wise, it's not a good idea to draw from one business to help pump up another business. You got to shut that business down. And if this goes on any further, even our local theaters in Westchester, too, places like, you know, the old Westchester Broadway Theater in Elmsford, which operates under a different name now, obviously, all these years later. But places like that, they can't stay closed forever. They have to have people like you and me and everybody else coming in and patronizing and coming back again, or they cannot function as an entity, as a successful business, and they have to close down. All part of this.
And all the surrounding businesses that are relying on people going to their theaters.
Relying on the residual spending from all of this, too.
Yes.
It's all connected. And this, obviously, when you sit down and put a budget together, you talk about all this and find a way to work it out.
Well, hope you can work it out.
You can work it out.
You can hope. I mean, because even, you know, with the amount of money that we are losing right now, there's no way. I mean, even with service cuts or God forbid that laying people off, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. So we have to be creative. And what that's going to mean, as I said, is yet to be determined.
Mayor Greg Luisi, Village of Tuckahoe, Governor Cuomo has mandated that by April 2021, every locality around the state of New York in this era of social justice and police reform has a police reform package or plan on his desk. In the Village of Tuckahoe, and we're still months out from that, a good 6 months out from that, 5.5 months out from that. What does this look like at the moment? If you had to do it today, what would that look like to make the governor happy?
I'm about one person away. I just need to get a name, and I will have the core group ready to roll. We've solicited people in our community again, Thank you to the governor following, his recommendations on who should be part of that core group. So we've established the core group. And then from there, that core group will then add, solicit input from the community, other people that are vested, such as our veterans, our Chamber of Commerce, our Maxwell Institute, which deals with mental health issues. We have a new coalition that formed here known as Stronger Together that looks to educate children about the dangers of vaping, tobacco, so on and so forth. So I'm about ready to send those names up to the county because they're asking for those names first, but we're going to be ready to have this task force going very, very soon. So we've enlisted our local pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church. We have a representative from the Westchester County DA's office. The one name that we know that we have to get from the Legal Aid Society, that's the one name I don't have yet. I will be sitting on that committee as well, as long with one of the trustees. Police department will have 2 representatives as well. So we're going to start off with a group of 7 people, and then from there, community input, community forums, and we have already been soliciting people to be on those committees as well. Just even regular people, just be a regular citizen to sit in and listen to what they think needs to be done to improve the police department here in Tuckahoe. We're fortunate, though, I have to say, John. We have body cams. We have dashboard cams. Our police department is diversified. We have men, women, people of color. Our police department engages in many community outreach programs throughout the year. We have, in the warm months, we have officers that are on bikes, and they do their patrolling on bikes and hanging out in the local communities and talking to the residents. I'm not saying that there doesn't need to be need for improvement. That's what we're going to look at and see. Maybe some more training along those lines, diversity training, whatever the case may be. But I think for Tuckahoe, it's an easy task for us to follow the governor's requirements.
Mayor Greg Luisi, for anyone who would like to get in touch with you at the Village of Tuckahoe, how about a phone number, an email, etc., any website, anything you might have?
Well, you can go to the Village website, and my email address is gluisi,
Luisi.
Luisi at Tuckahoe-NewYork.com.
Right, Mayor Greg Luisi, we thank you for your time today, extensive time spent with us here at Westchester Talk Radio. Great to have you. Much appreciated.
Same here, John. Thank you.
Let's talk again. I know It's been a tough year, been a tough go, a tough haul for everybody around the area, but I know you're making the best of it in Tuckahoe and all the best for the rest of 2020 and into 2021. And as we discussed, let's hope we get back to some semblance of a regular and normal life as best as possible. And oh, by the way, happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays to you, yours, and everybody in Tuckahoe.
Thank you, John.
And regards to my old pal, former Mayor Steve Eklund, when you get to talk to him.
I for sure will let him know.
Thank you. Wish him our best.
Bob Marone for me.
Yep, okay.
Ask him if he's still the shortest guy in talk radio.
Okay. Mayor, thank you. Much appreciated.
He'll appreciate that joke.
All right. Mayor Greg Luisi here on Westchester Talk Radio, WestchesterTalkRadio.com. Produced by Sharc Creative. That's Sharc with a C, not a K. You got the big logo behind me on the wall in orange and blue, the Sharc Creative logo. We are made possible here at Westchester Talk Radio on our Cup of Joe political show by people like Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. Hightower, Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. And White Plains Hospital, special thanks to our friends at White Plains Hospital for all they have done throughout this COVID-19 pandemic here in 2020. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labrione Osceola Landscape Design and Construction of Armonk. We thank you. And catch all of our Westchester, Fairfield County, Putnam, and Dutchess Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.